All right, we're very lucky to kick off the show today with one of our favorite guests, Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman. Congresswoman, welcome to the show.
It's so good to be with you.
We love having you on. I want to start with something that you've been working on. That's introducing legislation to promptly end political persecutions. And I think it's called Promptly Ending Political Persecutions and Executive Retaliation Act. I love the name of that. Talk a little bit about the motivation for this and what it will solve in the long last 10 years of misery we've had in this country, in this town particularly.
So it's Russell Fry, my colleague Russell Fry, that has introduced this. But the purpose of it is to make sure that we do not see the lawfare like what we've experienced over the last 4 years. And actually, even before that, when the Obama administration attempted to go after Donald Trump for a variety of reasons. But the idea is that to the extent that a state court attempts to assert jurisdiction over a current or former federal official, that person can remove the case to federal court. So all of the persecutions that you saw with Fani Willis in Georgia and the New York persecutions, if this bill had been in place at that time, then Donald Trump could have been removed to federal court, and you would not have seen, number one, the lawfare, the selective prosecution, but you also would have had a more fair playing field for the accused in these cases. I don't think that the prosecutors would have brought the cases in the first place if they knew they were going to end up in federal court.
Yeah. Good point.
Absolutely. What do you make of these judges out there? There was another one in the last few days who overturned something that President Trump did and said the president is not king. If the president is not king, neither are the courts if they're trying to overturn what he did.
It's been an interesting dynamic, but I think we expected it. And more importantly, I believe the Trump administration expected that this was going to be the battle that they would have to play, that would play out. We saw it in the first administration, and I think he was a bit taken aback by how aggressive the courts were in trying to block him rather than implement the actual law. And so he's got a team in place now that they know what to do. I did see this week, and it's something that I've been talking about for quite a while. And in fact, I think I said it on your show the last time I was on here. Is according to Rule 65 of the Rules of Civil Procedure, if you are seeking to block an official federal action, if you're seeking an injunction, you must post a bond in the amount of whatever damages could potentially be caused. So, for example, we know about the tens of millions and hundreds of billions of dollars that have been spent on illegal aliens over the last 4 years. Let's say that you were able to get an injunction against a particular order that then allowed illegal aliens to come into the country, and we had to house them and feed them and all of those things. Whatever that cost, you could eventually force that party to pay if and when the federal government prevails. And I believe that the Trump administration will eventually prevail in these cases because under Article 2, he has the authority to control and dictate what the executive branch is going to do. So I think he will eventually prevail. And the other thing it would do is just really, it would put a financial burden on these NGOs, these state governments that are just going all out in lawfare in terms of trying to block his agenda, not because it's the right or legal thing to do, but because it's the political thing to do.
Yeah. Congressman, I want to talk a little bit about this week's very important business in Congress, getting a temporary CR done so you can get to a larger budget cuts at later in the year. What's the sentiment among Republicans? Do you think you get this done?
I think we do. I think that we're behind it. We recognize the importance of the situation we find ourselves in. I like this CR for a variety of things that it is doing, including the fact that while it is cutting spending, it is also plussing up some of our national defense spending, most specifically in giving our enlisted men and women a substantial raise, which they absolutely deserve it. And I have been in support of that with NDAAs and those sorts of things. So this is giving us the vehicle to give our military the raise that they deserve. So I think that that's a good point about this. The other thing that it does is it doesn't increase spending. And I've been a budget hawk that we need to be cutting spending. That's why I like DOGE as much as I do. I like what Elon Musk is exposing. We need to cut spending, and this CR is the first step in getting us lined out to be able to do our budget and then move on to reconciliation.
Do you anticipate that this will be a party line vote, or do you think some Democrats might cross over or maybe even Republicans go against?
I believe that there will be Democrats that cross over. I think that we have the majority, if not all, of the Republicans. I haven't talked to every one of them, but I do think that there's a pretty strong sentiment, including among the conservatives, where I definitely line up. I think we've got some good support there. As far as the Democrats, I think they would be crazy to leave this on the table, but it would just further solidify the fact that this is a political warfare for them. This is not about what's in the best interest of our country if they vote against it.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to explain a vote against giving our men and women in uniform a pay raise. That's going to be a tough one to have to take home to their constituents for sure. Congressman, I want to ask a little bit about what's going on in the executive branch as Congress is working parallel. Today, the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, said, hey, 83% of USAID grants I'm able to get rid of. We're going to be good on that. Elon Musk is finding all sorts of waste, fraud, and abuse or savings. Is Congress, when in the next round, they're going to be able to incorporate all of these things that the executive branch found into law to further reduce the budget, correct?
Yes, I'm very excited about the work that they've been doing. Keep in mind, a year ago, I voted in favor of abolishing USAID because I've known for quite some time how toxic it is. And the point that I've made about this agency is it's obviously not one of our most expensive agencies. I think it's $50 to $60 billion, which is an astronomical amount of money. But it was spreading such an incredible toxicity around the world. And I don't care if you're from Colombia or Guatemala or the Middle East or India or England, Europe. We believe in family. We believe in community. We believe in traditional values. We believe in Judeo-Christian values. The vast majority of us do. And USAID was being used by a select few people to spread a level of toxicity, ideas, and ideology that was incredibly destructive to our relationship with people around the world. And I think people need to understand that it wasn't just what we were funding, mostly without our knowledge. And in fact, that's a point that I made in a speech I gave a couple of weeks ago, is that even the folks who worked at USAID knew how bad it was, what the policies were that they were pursuing, that they were actually attempting to hide any kind of congressional oversight whatsoever. Well, if they were proud of their work, they would have been willing to give Senator Joni Ernst everything that she had been asking for the last several years as an example. They knew that once this was exposed, the gig was up, and that's why they've been trying to hide this information from Congress. But we now know, now it's time to abolish that agency. We move on to the next agency, expose its waste, fraud, and abuse. And in the end, the American taxpayer and the American citizen and our American culture is really what's going to benefit.
Yeah.
And this wokeness has seeped into practically every sector of American society, including with parental rights, something that I think up until maybe 5 years ago, people didn't think needed to be protected. But you've introduced legislation to do just that. Tell us about it.
So one of the things that happens is schools will get permission from parents at the beginning of the year saying that their students can go on field trips, that they can take surveys, that they can engage, that they can participate in certain classes. And then the parents think, okay, well, they're not going to do anything bad at that school. I trust my school. They're going to make sure that they're acting in the best interest of my children. And then you find out that they're giving these kids surveys that are so completely and totally out of line with your moral authority, with what you believe in. I remember reading a survey in Wyoming many years ago that had actually been funded and produced by the University of Wyoming. It was directed at middle school students, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. It asked how many sexual partners they had had in their lifetime. And I'm thinking, why are you asking 12-year-old kids about this? And why are you making it seem that it would be normal that it's more than zero? It was such a bizarre thing. So what this act does is it forces the school that whenever they're going to engage in these kinds of surveys, or they're going to have these kids attend classes that may be contrary to their parents' beliefs, they again have to get that permission to make sure that the parents are always engaged with what their children are seeing and learning at school.
So important. Congresswoman, just real quickly, as we were sitting talking here, earlier today, President Trump and his administration arrested and put into ICE detention a Palestinian who was involved in the Columbia University protests. A few moments ago, one of those federal judges we were talking about blocked the deportation of that activist. I'd like to just get your early reaction to that.
So again, they know which judges to go to. They're activist judges that are not applying the law, but they are applying their social justice view of the law. Ultimately, I believe that he will be deported. And here's the thing: when people come here as guests, their obligation is to abide by our laws and mores. Now, I am a very strong advocate for the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. I am not talking about that. But when you are engaging in terrorist activities or supporting terrorists, if you're supporting Hamas, there is no reason why we need to keep you here as a guest. Mm-hmm. And I think it's entirely appropriate to let these people know we're no longer going to tolerate this kind of behavior.
Yeah, and President Trump talked about this before the American people elected, so they knew they were electing the president to do exactly this. Congresswoman, as it always is, such a great opportunity to talk. Thank you for your common sense and wisdom today. Thanks so much.